Hello, my name is Kylie McCormick, and I am a member of the Oregon-California Trails Association, and I am currently standing on a section of that Oregon-California Trail. This is a section of the trail that has been marked by OCTA, and I'm standing in something that we call a swale. When you go out and you look at swales, it's very clear that the trail is not a single path, that they're often riding next to each other, and I wouldn't want to be eating anybody's dust either. And so you can see where there's two swales here. The marker is in between them. There's a swale off to the side that you can see really well, and then I'm standing also in one. These swales are located outside of the city of Douglas. One of the first cemeteries in that city, the Wyoming Pioneer Cemetery, is just below these swales, as well as having them in between US 59 highway and private land, a junkyard. So it's a very short section of the trail, but a really interesting one that tells a story about how it's not just one trail, that there's a lot of little decisions that these pioneers were making along the way. Before 1850, those pioneers who were coming on what is known as the Council Bluffs Road were coming north of the North Platte River into Fort Laramie, where they were convinced to cross the river onto the south side. They were told that it was suicidal to try and continue on the north side of the river, that there were high bluffs and deep ravines and just all kinds of treacherous sandy banks and things that they could get caught in. A bad idea. So to cross at Fort Laramie, stay on the south side of the river on into the area that would become known as Casper, where they would have to cross that river again, get on the north side of it, to head on to Independence Rock. Now, interestingly, the swale that I am standing in, it is not on the south side of the river. It's not on the main trail where the pioneers were taking before 1850. It is on the north side of the river. Something interesting happens to the trail in 1850. There are a lot of people on the road. The gold rush has been happening. 1849, we saw trail travel jumped from just a couple of thousand of people to 30,000 people on the trail in 1849, and we're seeing similar numbers into the 1850, which means that there is a lot of sickness on the road as well, especially on that south side of the river where everyone was traveling. A couple of wagon parties in June 1850 reached Fort Laramie, and they were not convinced that they should cross there. They thought that they should take their chance staying on the north side of the river. One of those parties was the Upper Mississippi Ox Company, and an officer of that party was a man named Andrew Childs. He didn't keep a diary, as far as we know, of that journey, but someone on his trip did. And so they decided, they were one of the first parties to decide to stay north of the river, take that suicidal risk, and see how the road was. They were delighted when they reached the Upper Platte River ferry and realized that they had made 2 days on the travelers who had stayed south of the river. And one of the diarists on that party, he said, "As good a road, better grass, and kept clear of the sickness, of which there was a good deal on the south side." Andrew Childs, a member of that party, he wrote a guidebook talking about the decision that they made to stay on the north side of the river. And he mails that to his brother in Milwaukee, who publishes it in 1852. In 1853, we have the only diarist that Randy Brown has been able to find who actually mentions using Andrew Childs' guide. Yet today, when we're talking about this section of the trail, the extension of the Council Bluffs Road that is coming north of the North Platte River, we call it Childs Cutoff. We call it Childs Cutoff because of a trail historian named Paul Henderson, who coined the term in the 1950s. It's interesting when you're doing trail work, you're working with a lot of different people who are naming these things. Most of the names are coming from the pioneers and what they actually called it, but some of them are coming from the preservationists and the people who were making efforts to save the trail. a lot more historians and preservationists use Child's guide than the actual pioneers as far as the evidence in the diaries show. Now, we don't get swales this size with a party of 19 wagons doing this trail once in 1850, that several other parties decided that they should stay north of the North Platte River into trail travel into the 1850s and the 1860s. It became popular to stay on the north side. Next to me here is a carcinite marker placed by Octa and Randy Brown at Octa. Here in Wyoming, most of the carcinite markers have been placed by Randy Brown, but that's not the only place you can find these markers. These markers are all the way from Independence, Missouri to the end of the trail into Utah and California and Oregon and Washington. These are great tools to help people identify these trails. They have been researched to make sure they are accurately placed. And if you're not familiar with how to pick out a swale, you can look for these Octa markers, and just like this one is placed in between two great swales, you can start to get the hang of it and identify them for yourself. When I first came out and saw this swale a few years back, the city had just graded the road. And when they did that, they started to fill in these swales. Randy Brown came out here and he dug up what had filled into these swales, and he created this berm here to try and protect them. And then in the next several years, he's approached the city about what are they going to do to let them know that this is here, this is city land, and that they are responsible for protecting it. And I'm very pleased in the transformation that has happened in the last several years, that the city of Douglas has signed on to protecting these swales. They're going to be putting up a new plaque describing Child's Cutoff and what section of the trail this was. And that is thanks to the preservation efforts of Octa and Randy Brown. It is wonderful I would encourage anybody who is interested in preserving history in a very real way to join the organization, because it gives you that great opportunity to do things like protect this amazing section of trail.